You think a black man like you could ever afford the presidential suite? Nicole snarled, hurling the black card across the counter like trash. This card's fake. Try a budget place on the South Side. Those were the words. The exact moment everything broke wide open. But in just 10 minutes, that man, quiet, calm, dressed in a navy blazer and jeans, would make one phone call, and everyone standing behind that front desk would be out of a job, because they had no idea who he really was. But before we get into that, I want to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your city in the comments. And hey, if you believe in standing up against injustice, make sure you hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and let's get into what really happened inside the Horizon Grand Hotel in Chicago on June 19th at exactly 8:46 p.m. This wasn't just another bad service story. This was personal. Marcus Carter walked into that lobby alone. No entourage, no fanfare. Just a 45-year-old black man wearing jeans, a navy blazer, and a look of pure exhaustion. Born and raised in Chicago, Marcus had just wrapped a critical partner meeting that could shift the future of his company. All he wanted now was rest, peace. He didn't ask for trouble. All he did was slide his black card across the marble counter and say, calm as ever. One night in the presidential suite. Please. Simple. Direct. But the moment he spoke, the atmosphere shifted. Nicole Harris, the front desk manager, early 30s, blonde, sharp voice, Ohio accent, narrowed her eyes, looked Marcus up and down, and didn't even reach for the card. I think you're in the wrong hotel. Sir? She said it slow, like she was giving him a chance to save himself the embarrassment. He smiled slightly, thinking maybe she didn't hear him right. I'm here to book the presidential suite, just for tonight. He slid his Illinois driver's license across next. Her lips curled. This ID looks fake, she muttered. Tossing it aside, Brian Foster, the concierge, young guy from Texas with an arrogant smirk, chimed in. You don't really look like presidential suite material. A couple sitting nearby, Richard and Laura Bennett, white, well-dressed, sipping champagne, looked up briefly but said nothing. That's when Daniel Pierce, the general manager, emerged, middle-aged, neatly dressed, born in Michigan, with a voice that always sounded like it belonged in a boardroom. He didn't greet Marcus. He didn't ask if something was wrong. He walked straight to Nicole and asked, Is he refusing to leave the counter? Marcus blinked. I'm not refusing anything. I just asked for a suite. He picked up his black card again, extended it toward Nicole. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she scoffed. This is fake. You think anyone's falling for that? Then, with a flick of her wrist, she tossed it back like garbage. The Bennetts exchanged glances but said nothing. Brian snorted. Maybe he'd be more comfortable somewhere more affordable. Nicole smiled and added, There's a budget place 3 blocks down. They're more your style. That's when security arrived. Linda Walsh, mid-30s, tight ponytail, Chicago native, stepped forward. Sir, I'm gonna need you to leave, or I'll be forced to call the police. Her hand hovered near her radio. That moment froze in the air. That's when Marcus caught a quiet voice to his right. This isn't right. It was Mia Lang, the trainee concierge, barely 22, California-born, just started a few months ago. She stood behind the desk, pale with discomfort, looking from Marcus to Nicole. He's being respectful, Mia said. His ID and card check out. Let him book. Nicole shot her a look that said, stay in your lane. But Mia didn't back down. From across the lobby, a woman's voice rang out. This is unfair. He's got every right to book a room. Emma Larson, white, late 30s, visiting from Minnesota. She stood now, arms crossed. Why are y'all treating him like this? Her husband, Michael Grant. 42, from Florida, joined her. You can't just deny someone service like this. Marcus calmly reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He dialed one number. Rachel, he said, log this, start recording, and get Sophia here. Now. The call ended. That's all he said. He looked up at the front desk staff, calm, composed, but his eyes were fire. Nicole huffed. Suites reserved anyway, for the Bennetts. As if on cue. The Bennetts got up, champagne in hand, and were led toward the elevators. Nicole watched them go like she'd won something. See? She smirked. VIP guests. Confirmed. Emma's voice shook. This is outrageous, Michael added. Swipe his card. You haven't even tried to process it. But Nicole ignored them. She voided the booking request in the system, without even looking at the screen. No record for a Marcus Carter, she muttered, even though he had clearly just been at the counter. Linda crossed her arms, still ready to call backup. Last chance, sir. Marcus didn't move. He just picked up his card from the counter, slowly, deliberately. You're ruining Horizon Grand, he said, his voice level. And you're about to find out how badly. Back at the desk. Mia heard something chilling. Nicole and Brian were whispering behind the concierge wall. He's no VIP, Brian said. Snickering, Nicole added. Just another guy trying to fake it. Thinks a blazer makes him special. Mia's eyes widened. She stepped back quietly and clicked her phone's voice memo app. She hit record. Guests were starting to whisper. Murmurs rolled through the lobby like rising smoke. Something wasn't right. Something was off. Emma stepped closer to the counter. I've worked in hospitality. This is discrimination. Period. Michael nodded. Fists clenched. You're not getting away with this. Daniel stepped forward again. Sir, you are disturbing the peace of this hotel. If you don't leave immediately, we will involve law enforcement. That's when Marcus looked at him and said, with a quiet force, You'll regret this. Daniel. Mia stepped out from behind the desk. His request was valid, she said, louder this time. There was no reason to deny him. Nicole crossed her arms, unbothered. Budget hotel's your place, she repeated, her voice like ice. And with that, the fuse was lit. Leave the suite or face the police. Daniel's voice echoed across the lobby like a threat wrapped in velvet. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His tone alone carried the weight of warning, laced with entitlement and bias. Marcus stood still, surrounded by staring guests and silent tension, while Nicole folded her arms and said, You're a scammer. This hotel has standards. Brian leaned in from the concierge desk, chuckling under his breath. Man, people like you never stop trying, huh? Linda, the security officer, took a step forward, hand hovering near her belt. Let's not make this hard, okay? Her words weren't loud, but they were sharp. The threat hung in the air like a blade. Marcus didn't flinch, but you could see it in his jaw, the tension, the restraint. Mia, standing to the side, finally snapped. He's done nothing wrong. His request was valid from the start. But Daniel didn't acknowledge her. He just muttered to Nicole, not quietly enough. He's trouble. Let's move him out. A classic microaggression, vague enough to deny, sharp enough to wound. Mia stepped back behind the desk, seething. She heard Nicole and Brian laughing again, this time louder. Look at those jeans, Brian whispered. Probably got 'em on sale. Presidential suite. My ass. Nicole giggled. Should have brought a suit and tie if he wanted to pretend better. The casual cruelty of their voices made Mia's stomach turn. She hit record on her phone again. Silently. Meanwhile, Emma Larson, still standing firm by the velvet ropes, raised her voice above the noise. This is wrong. Let the man stay. Michael stood beside her, arms crossed. You're targeting him because of how he looks. Plain and simple. Other guests had stopped pretending to ignore what was happening. A few stepped closer, whispering. Nicole ignored them. She turned back to the computer and, once again, updated the booking log, this time erasing Marcus's entry altogether. Still no record, she said without even checking. Marcus didn't respond right away. He just looked at the front desk, at the Horizon Grand logo behind it, the marble floors, the glittering chandelier overhead, and something in his face shifted. It wasn't shock anymore. It was memory. Painful, clear memory. 20 years earlier. At 25, Marcus had applied for a job at a hotel not unlike this one. He wore his best suit, came early, shook every hand, but the manager had taken one look at him, at his skin, his name, his expression, and said, "We're looking for someone more polished." He never forgot that moment. It stung the same now as it did then, except now. He owned 60% of this entire hotel chain. His phone buzzed quietly. "Rachel." He answered in a low voice. "Sophia's on her way," she confirmed. "I've started logging everything you sent me. I'm tracking your audio files, too. You're not alone in this." Marcus exhaled softly. "Good. Keep recording." Across the lobby, Mia slipped back out and gave a small nod. She had recorded more of Daniel's comments. Guest chatter was rising now, a low wave of indignation building. Emma shook her head. "I've seen this happen before." "Not this time," Michael added. "I travel for work every week. This hotel just lost my business." Marcus finally turned back to Daniel. "You're crossing a line," he said, voice cool and level. Daniel frowned. "You think making threats is going to help you?" Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. Mia stepped forward again, voice stronger now. "He has a right to be here. You all ignored his ID, threw away his card, called him a scammer. We're trained not to do that, but you don't care." Nicole smirked and said, "He can cry about it at the Motel 8. Emma's voice cracked like a whip. "You owe him an apology. All of you." Michael pointed toward the counter. "Start by swiping his damn card." But they didn't. Nicole rolled her eyes. Daniel gave a dismissive laugh. "If you think that's going to work, you clearly don't understand how we run things here." Then Mia spoke up with something new, something big. "This isn't the first time this has happened," she said clearly. "They've ignored complaints before. Other guests, especially black guests, have reported profiling and mistreatment. But Daniel always says the same thing. We'll look into it." And nothing changes. Her voice shook, but she stood tall. Emma gasped. "That's a pattern. That's illegal." Michael nodded. "If that's true, it's time to go public." Nicole laughed nervously. "She's just a trainee. Don't listen to her." But the damage was done. Guests began filming now, not for social media, but for themselves. A record, an archive. Marcus said loud enough for all to hear. "Your bias ends tonight. So let me ask you something. What would you have said if you were standing there? What would you do to fight back against this kind of bias? Drop it in the comments below. Every voice matters." The air in the lobby thickened. Security radios buzzed. Daniel whispered to Linda, "Get him out before it gets worse." But Linda hesitated. The crowd was growing, and it was clear they weren't on management's side. Marcus stood calm and still, his phone still recording, eyes never leaving Daniel's face. The front desk staff didn't realize it yet, but the moment had shifted. The weight of the room was no longer behind them. It had moved, behind Marcus, behind Mia, behind the guests who refused to stay silent. A reckoning was coming, and all it would take was one more twist to set everything into motion. This guest must leave the suite for disrupting hotel operations. Daniel's voice suddenly blasted over the lobby intercom, crackling through the speakers like an alarm. Every head turned. Some guests stood still, stunned. Others shifted uncomfortably, unsure if they'd just heard that right. But Marcus knew exactly what was happening. The management had officially made him the problem, a threat. A man trying to rest had just been branded a disruption. Nicole stood at the front desk, smug, arms folded, while Brian leaned against the concierge counter, sipping from a paper cup like it was all a game. "Should have just left when you had the chance," he muttered. Linda took one step forward, radio in hand. "Sir, if you don't walk out right now, I'll be forced to call CPD." Her tone was flat. She didn't look angry, just annoyed, like Marcus was a stray item someone left behind. Nicole smirked. "Told you, he's not sweet material." Behind her, Brian nodded. "Some folks just don't know when to quit." Mia, clutching her phone tightly, heard them both, every last word. She'd left the voice memo app running, recording everything, again, just like the others. But this time, she wasn't alone. Emma stepped forward, voice shaking but steady. "This is unacceptable. He belongs here. I don't care how he's dressed. He's a paying guest. And you're harassing him," Michael added. "This is not how you treat people. We all saw him check in. We saw you throw his card." Nicole rolled her eyes, muttering, "Why are y'all even getting involved?" But Emma wasn't backing down. "Because I've seen this before. The difference is, this time, I'm not staying quiet." Meanwhile, Daniel turned away from the desk and whispered something to Nicole and Brian. "If this gets out, we'll say he was yelling, creating a scene. Dangerous. We've done it before." Mia's jaw dropped. She hadn't expected him to say it out loud. Not that blatantly. Not when people were already watching. She hit save on the audio file and stepped away from the desk. "Say that again," she said out loud. "You're gonna lie about him now?" Daniel's face froze. Marcus still hadn't moved. He stood in the same spot, back straight, phone in hand, just watching, not yelling, not reacting. He didn't have to, because everything was already being recorded, not just on his phone, but in the phones and minds of every guest standing around the lobby. You could feel it. The shift. Emma turned to the guests nearby. "If you think this is wrong, say something." A man in a suit nodded. A couple with luggage stepped closer. Another woman, clearly traveling for business, said, "This is ridiculous." Mia looked at Marcus. "I recorded it. I've got it all. I heard them talking about lying on the report." Marcus nodded once, calm, quiet, but his eyes said everything, from behind the desk. Brian muttered, "She's bluffing." But Nicole wasn't so sure. She stepped back from the computer, suddenly nervous. "This whole thing's getting out of hand." Daniel tried to steady the situation. "Everyone just calm down. This guest is being removed for violating policy. That's all." Michael raised his voice. "What policy? What did he do?" "Nothing. You're making this up because he's black and not wearing a three-piece suit." Gasps rippled. Nicole opened her mouth, but no words came out. Marcus finally spoke. "You've exposed yourselves. Every lie. Every word. It's all recorded. And trust me, it's already been sent." Linda hesitated, one hand still on her radio, but something stopped her. It wasn't just Mia now. It was the guests. The weight of the room had turned. Emma stepped in front of Marcus, planting her feet like a shield. "You're not laying a finger on him." Michael stepped beside her. "We'll make a barrier if we have to." The tension boiled over. Several more guests followed, lawyers, business travelers, even a teenager who had been watching from the seating area, together, without even planning it. They stepped between Marcus and the staff. Linda froze. She looked at Daniel, then at Nicole, who just muttered, "Let them act crazy. They'll cool off." But it was too late. Mia walked over to Marcus, held up her phone. "They plan to frame you. I've got it. I'll send it to whoever you need." Nicole's voice was suddenly quiet. "You think anyone will believe her? She's a trainee." Marcus looked at Nicole and said, "She's got more integrity in her 1 week here than you've shown in your whole career." Brian tried to deflect. "We've had fake cards before. How are we supposed to know?" Michael pointed at him, disgusted. "Because you didn't even check it. You threw it. I saw it. We all saw it." Mia turned to the guests. "They ignored past complaints too. Every time a guest of color raised something, they covered it up. It's been going on for months. Maybe longer." Emma's voice rose again, clear as a bell. "That's it. I want corporate here now. This is criminal." Marcus didn't raise his voice. He simply said, "Your bias is exposed, and your time is up. And here's the question for you. If you were in that lobby, watching this unfold, and then heard that this man, the one they tried to shame, humiliate, remove, was actually the CEO of the whole place, what would you do? How would you react to that kind of reveal? Let us know in the comments below, because what happens next will change everything. Escort him out. Now." Daniel's voice cut through the rising voices like a blade, panicked and sharp. His composure was gone. He wasn't hiding behind smooth management talk anymore. This was desperation. "Nicole, Brian, Linda, get him out of the building before this turns into a scene." But it was already too late for that. Linda moved fast, stepping toward Marcus with purpose, her hand reaching for his arm. "Sir, this is your final warning." But before she could touch him, a voice rang out, fierce, loud, and from across the room, "Don't lay a hand on him." Emma Larson pushed through the small crowd, eyes locked on Linda, her finger pointed like a dagger. "He hasn't done a single thing wrong, and you know it." Michael was right behind her. "You touch that man. You're assaulting a paying guest, and I promise you, you'll regret it." Guests were standing up now. People who had been quiet just minutes ago were pulling out their phones, stepping forward, forming a loose, unspoken wall around Marcus. Some held luggage, some held Starbucks cups, but all of them had the same look, like they weren't gonna let this happen. Linda froze. She glanced at Daniel. He didn't say a word, just gave her a look that said, "Handle it." But the tide had already turned. Mia darted across the lobby, standing between Marcus and security. "You can't do this," she shouted. "This man came in here to rest. You've profiled him, humiliated him, and erased his name from the log twice," Nicole hissed. "You're out of line." But Mia didn't flinch. "No, you are." Daniel tried to salvage control. "Guests, please, return to your rooms. This is a private matter involving a disruptive individual." That was the wrong move. The crowd erupted. "We saw everything," someone yelled. "This is racism, not disruption," another guest shouted. Emma, standing firm with her arms crossed, turned to face the crowd. "You all heard the intercom. You saw them ignore his ID. You saw them toss his black card. You know what this is." Murmurs turned into open agreement. A man in a business suit said, "I've stayed at Horizon Grand for years. I'm canceling every future reservation." Suddenly, Rachel's voice buzzed through Marcus's phone. Calm, certain. "Sophia's in the lobby. I repeat, Sophia Nelson has arrived. She's watching everything." Marcus looked toward the entrance, and there she was. Sophia Nelson, managing director of Horizon Grand, in a tailored slate gray suit, heels clicking on the marble floor. No security, no assistant, just her presence, sharp and commanding. She wasn't smiling. Her eyes scanned the lobby like a silent drone, assessing, absorbing. Nicole's face drained of color. Daniel straightened his blazer, like appearance would cover panic. Sophia walked slowly, deliberately, toward the front desk. She didn't say a word. Guests parted like water. Marcus stepped forward, never looking away from Daniel. "This ends now." Linda backed up. Emma turned and said, "She's here. Corporate's here," Michael added. "Let's see how they spin this one." Daniel tried to recover. "Miss Nelson, this situation is under control. We were just dealing with a guest who—" "Was what?" Sophia interrupted, her voice quiet but devastating. "Trying to check in?" Her eyes didn't blink. "Because from what I've heard, that's exactly what he did. And what I saw? That was a full-blown crisis unfolding in real time, at the hands of this staff." She turned to Marcus and nodded. "We'll handle this." But Marcus wasn't done. He looked around the room. The guests, the staff, Mia, Emma, Michael, all standing for something they didn't plan to. Everyone here just witnessed how power can be misused, but now, we're gonna watch what happens when it's used the right way. Nicole stepped forward, suddenly nervous. He came in with no reservation, no suit, just showed up asking for the suite, we thought. "You thought he didn't belong," Marcus cut in, "because you judged him on what he wore, what he looked like, not who he was." Sophia looked at Mia. "Do you have those recordings?" Mia nodded and handed her phone to Rachel, who had just walked in beside her boss. "All yours," Mia said. "Every word." Guests applauded, literally applauded. It wasn't loud, just a ripple, but it was real. Nicole turned pale. Brian stepped back. Linda looked like she'd just realized she was on the wrong side. Daniel swallowed hard. "Let's talk privately." "No," Marcus said. "We're doing this right here, in the open. Just like you tried to shame me. I'll hold you accountable with witnesses." Sophia nodded. "I support that," Mia whispered to Marcus. "I can't believe they tried to frame you, even after everything." "I believe it," he said. "It's happened before, but it won't happen again." A wave of stillness swept over the room, a strange, almost sacred hush, because everyone knew the next words would change everything. "I'm Marcus Carter." The words cut through the tension like a lightning strike. Calm, steady. But behind the voice was a fire that made the room freeze. "CEO and majority owner of Horizon Grand Hotels. I hold 60% of this entire brand. And this location?" He glanced around at the chandeliers, the velvet furniture, the shocked faces of guests and staff. "This is mine." For a moment, nobody moved. Not Nicole, who stood blinking behind the front desk, lips parted in horror. Not Daniel, whose jaw slackened like he'd seen a ghost. Not Brian, who slowly stepped backward like he was trying to disappear into the wall. Even Linda dropped her hand from her radio. The crowd gasped. Phones were still up, not for social media, but for proof. Because this was the twist no one saw coming. The man they insulted, threatened, erased from the system. He was the boss of the entire operation. The man they mocked for wearing jeans, he was the one who signed their checks. Emma was the first to speak. "You're the CEO?" Marcus nodded, his voice quiet but unshakable. "I am. And you all just witnessed why reform in hospitality is still necessary." Michael let out a long breath. "This is justice," he said. "This is what it looks like when power speaks back." Marcus turned to Sophia. "Effective immediately. I'm suspending operations at this hotel until further notice." Gasps echoed again. Daniel's face flushed red. You can't do that." Marcus looked at him flatly. "I can, and I just did." Sophia stepped forward, pulling a tablet from her bag. "Suspension authorized. she said without hesitation. We'll notify all staff and vendors by end of day. Guests will be relocated to our sister property downtown, fully comped. Horizon will cover everything. Rachel, calm as ever, stood beside her, holding up a folder. All recordings have been logged, including voice memos from Mia Lang and Mr. Carter. We have verifiable proof of bias, misconduct, and intentional manipulation of guest records. Nicole stumbled forward. Wait. No, I didn't mean. Marcus raised a hand. Stop. I gave you every chance to do your job with integrity. You chose the opposite. Emma clapped, slow and steady. A few other guests joined her. Michael nodded. I've never seen anything like this, and I've traveled all over the country. Sophia turned to the staff. Nicole Harris, Brian Foster, Daniel Pierce, as of this moment, you are relieved of your duties. She paused. Please step away from the desk. Nicole's voice cracked. But I've worked here for 9 years. Marcus didn't blink. And in 9 years, how many guests did you treat the same way? How many voices did you ignore? Brian muttered. It was one mistake. Rachel raised her eyebrow. One? Because according to Mia and the recordings, this behavior's been repeated. There are dates, times, even names of other guests. You made this a pattern. Sophia's voice was like ice. You forged booking logs. You erased reservations. You profiled guests based on appearance. She paused. That is not who Horizon is, and it never will be. Daniel clenched his fists. You're making a scene over nothing. Marcus stepped forward. You know what the real scene is. Daniel, a black man trying to check in after a long day, being told to go to a budget motel, being told his ID is fake, being called a scammer, having the police threatened on him. That's the scene you created. Silence followed, cold and real. Nicole took one more desperate step forward. Daniel made us do it. He told us to prioritize white VIPs. He said... She stopped, shaking her head. He said it was policy. We didn't want to lose our jobs, Brian added. He made us alter records. Said if we didn't, we'd be replaced. Sophia crossed her arms. So now you're confessing to discrimination and conspiracy? Nicole opened her mouth, then closed it. Marcus turned to the guests. This hotel chain is supposed to represent excellence, fairness, and dignity. That's what I built it to be. That's what we'll get back to. Starting today. Linda stepped forward slowly. Mr. Carter. Her voice was quiet, unsure. I shouldn't have threatened you. I was wrong. I didn't know who you were. But that shouldn't matter. Marcus looked at her. It shouldn't. And I'll be honest. It almost did. But you stopped yourself. You didn't touch me. You hesitated. That means something. He paused. You're not off the hook. But you get one more chance. You'll enter training. If you pass, you stay. Linda nodded slowly, visibly shaken. Thank you. I won't waste it. Then Marcus turned to Mia. And you? He smiled. You stood up when nobody else would. You challenged your own team. You recorded the truth. That takes guts. He turned to Sophia. Effective immediately. Promote Mia Lang to lead concierge and add her to our policy reform team. Guests clapped again, louder this time. It wasn't just applause. It was relief, that someone with power had actually used it for something right. Michael leaned toward Emma. This feels like history. Emma nodded. Feels like healing. Marcus took a slow breath, taking it all in. The chaos, the reckoning, the slow return of calm. Then he said the words no one expected, but everyone needed. We're not going to make this public. No press release, no viral video. This stays in-house, because true justice isn't about clout. It's about change. Sophia nodded. Understood, Rachel added. All affected guests will receive full compensation. A follow-up email will go out within the hour. Marcus looked around one last time. Let this moment be a turning point. Not just for this hotel, but for everyone who ever thought fairness was optional. And just like that, the balance shifted. The hotel didn't burn down. No one went viral. But something more important happened. A culture cracked, and light poured through. You're terminated, Marcus said firmly, eyes fixed on the trio that had led the hotel into crisis. Nicole Harris, Brian Foster, Daniel Pierce, you're done. Fired for cause. Effective immediately. His voice was clear, not loud, but sharp enough to silence the entire lobby. Nicole looked stunned, her mouth slightly open like she still thought this was a warning, not a final word. Brian blinked fast, already stepping back, stammering something under his breath. And Daniel? He didn't move. His face was stiff, jaw locked, but behind his eyes, you could see it, disbelief turning into a slow, bitter rage. You can't do this, Daniel muttered. This is unjust. I've managed this location for years. Marcus didn't flinch. And in all those years, how many people did you silently push out? How many did you erase with a keystroke? How many did you treat the way you treated me tonight? The silence that followed wasn't just awkward. It was heavy, real. Sophia, arms crossed beside him, added, all terminations are backed by policy and evidence. We have recordings, reports, and direct witness testimony. If you'd like to dispute it, you can do so with legal, not with us. Nicole let out a half laugh, but it caught in her throat. I made a mistake. That's all. Marcus shook his head. No, you made a choice. Brian stepped forward, hands up. Look, I was just following Daniel's lead. He made us. But Marcus cut in. You followed the worst of him when you should have followed your conscience. He turned away. You're finished. The lobby watched as security, now operating under Sophia's direction, asked the three to step away from the desk. Nicole hesitated, looking toward Linda for some kind of backup, but Linda didn't move. Her hands were clasped, her head low. Marcus turned to her. Linda. She looked up, nervous but listening. You crossed a line tonight, threatening to call the police on a guest who hadn't done a thing wrong. That's serious. But I saw something in you the others didn't show. He paused. You stopped. You hesitated. You didn't follow through. Linda swallowed. I realized it wasn't right, and I didn't want to be part of it. Marcus nodded. You've got one shot. You'll be retrained, top to bottom. If you pass, you stay. But if you slip, even once, you're out. No second chances. Linda nodded slowly. I'll do better. Thank you. I won't waste it. Then, Marcus turned to Mia, and his voice softened. You didn't just witness injustice tonight. You stood up to it. You challenged your own co-workers. You made recordings. You risked your job to do the right thing. Mia looked overwhelmed, but proud. I couldn't just stand there and let it happen. Marcus smiled. That's the kind of leadership I want at Horizon. He looked to Sophia. Effective immediately. Mia Lang is promoted to lead concierge. She'll also join our internal reform task force. The lobby clapped. This time it wasn't polite, it was real. The kind of applause that comes from people seeing something good happen. Emma smiled wide. Yes, that's what I'm talking about, Michael added. That's leadership right there. Mia looked like she could cry. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. Rachel stepped in, holding a small tablet. Guest compensation packages are already being issued. Every guest who witnessed tonight's incident will receive a full refund and a future credit. Follow-up surveys will go out tonight, Sophia added. All staff at this location will undergo emergency equity and ethics training before operations resume. All existing policies will be audited for bias and transparency. Marcus nodded. And I'll personally oversee the reform. This isn't a PR move. It's a permanent change. Then came the final hit. The twist no one saw coming. Brian, now slumped against a wall with a resignation slip in hand, suddenly muttered, "You think this is the first time Daniel did this?" Heads turned. "He made us do this over and over. Black guests, Latino guests, sometimes even folks who just didn't look rich enough. He told us to erase reservations, say rooms were full, fake system glitches. We were told to protect the brand's image." Sophia's eyes narrowed. "How far back does this go?" Brian shrugged. "Years. Since before I got here, there were logs we never entered, complaints that disappeared. It wasn't just us. Daniel was the one coordinating it." Nicole, now seated and trembling, added, "He said corporate didn't care, that as long as profits stayed up, no one would ask questions." Marcus turned to Rachel. "Launch a company-wide audit. I want every complaint pulled, every forgery flagged, every incident reevaluated. I want a timeline, a report, and I want names." Rachel nodded. "Already on it." Sophia stepped in. "We'll involve compliance, ethics, and legal. The board will be briefed in the morning." Guests looked stunned. Emma whispered, "This wasn't just one bad night. This was a whole system." Michael nodded, jaw tight. "And it just got blown wide open." Marcus took one deep breath, his voice steady again. "Let this be the moment we stop hiding bias behind the front desk. This ends today." Sophia held out her hand. "We'll rebuild. Together." Marcus shook it. "Not rebuild. Evolve." The two nodded. Guests applauded again, not out of habit, but with hope. And with that, Marcus Carter, who came in as a tired man looking for rest, had turned the hotel upside down, fired those who abused their power, elevated those who spoke truth, and exposed a pattern no one wanted to admit. All in 10 minutes, during check-in, at his own hotel. The presidential suite was quiet now, calm, at last. Marcus Carter stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, the lights of Chicago glowing beneath him like a living constellation. The city was familiar, not just in view, but in spirit. This was where he was born, where he had once been denied opportunity because of his skin. And now, after 10 minutes that felt like 10 years, he stood at the top of a hotel he owned, alone. Finally, not to be admired or praised, but to exhale, to feel something that had been missing since he walked through the lobby doors. Peace. Behind him. The suite was stunning. Marble bathroom, plush linens, the kind of space built for rest and luxury. But none of that mattered. What mattered was that tonight, justice hadn't needed cameras or hashtags. It happened quietly, in the lobby, surrounded by real people, in real time. No press release, no viral clip, just a reckoning and a reset. Marcus sat on the edge of the leather sofa, letting the silence settle. A soft knock came at the door. It was Rachel, holding a folder and 2 cups of coffee. "One black," she said. "One hazelnut. Thought you could use a moment to breathe." He smiled. "You always know." She sat across from him. "Audit teams activated. Mia's accepted the promotion. Linda's starting her mandatory training on Monday. Sophia's briefing the board first thing in the morning. We've got eyes on everything now." Marcus nodded slowly. "Good. No more shadows." He stared down at the floor, voice low. "You know, I didn't plan any of this. I just wanted a bed and a little quiet. I came in low profile because I didn't want the usual fuss." Rachel leaned forward. "But the moment showed up anyway, and you rose to meet it." He nodded again, slower this time. "I didn't just meet it. I had to stand in it. Outside, the city kept moving, taxis passing, lights flickering, life happening. But inside that room, the legacy was being written, not on paper, not on hotel letterhead, but in action. Mia Lang, a 22-year-old trainee, now stood at the center of Horizon Grand's Policy Reform Committee, the youngest ever to hold that spot. Linda Walsh, once complicit, was now confronting her own bias with humility and the chance to grow. And guests like Emma Larson and Michael Grant, they left that hotel not just with refunds, but with stories of integrity, of standing up when it counted. "This is how change starts," Rachel said softly. "Not from PR teams or lawsuits, but from the floor, in real time, with witnesses." Marcus looked up. "And it starts by staying." He smiled faintly. "By not walking away when it gets ugly." He thought about the woman who once told him he didn't look polished enough for hotel work, about the night manager who ignored his resume and said the company wasn't ready, about the look on Daniel's face when Marcus said the words, "I'm the CEO." He didn't feel proud. He felt responsible. "I built Horizon Grand for fairness," he said quietly. "For dignity. I never wanted it to become just another place with nice chandeliers and hidden bias." Rachel nodded. "And now it won't." He stood, walked to the window again, sipping his coffee. "Do we know how many complaints Daniel buried?" Rachel opened the folder. "Initial counts at 17. We expect more. We've already located 3 incidents matching tonight's pattern. Guests of color denied service. Notes missing from the system. No follow-up. Same handwriting. Same digital signature." Marcus sighed. "We're going to make it right. Every single one. I want direct outreach. Apologies. Reimbursement. The works," Rachel added. "One more thing. A former employee from the Detroit location came forward, said regional management knew." "Looked the other way?" Marcus froze. "You sure?" She nodded. "Said Daniel bragged about being protected. We're confirming it now." Marcus clenched his jaw. "Then this wasn't just a few bad actors. It was a broken chain." He looked at her. "We rebuild it from the top down. Audits, ethics boards, staff reviews, no exceptions." Rachel closed the folder. "Already in motion." He walked back to the couch and sat again. "Funny," he said. "This all happened during check-in, 10 minutes, and now we've got months of rebuilding ahead." Rachel smiled. "The best work always starts in uncomfortable places." A knock on the door interrupted them again. This time, it was Mia, still in her uniform, still processing everything. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said, "for believing in me, for listening." Marcus stood. "Thank you for acting. Don't ever lose that fire." She smiled, tears welling up. "I won't." As she left, Marcus looked around the suite one last time. He didn't feel powerful. He felt grateful, grounded, not because of wealth or title, but because, tonight, the system cracked, and through that crack, accountability had finally stepped in. 3 months later, Marcus would stand in front of the Horizon Grand leadership team and unveil a new policy handbook, one that redefined guest treatment, enforced zero tolerance on profiling, and rewarded whistleblowers. Mia would be sitting at the head of the reform panel. Linda, now reformed and certified, would be training new hires on bias awareness. And the hotel that once tried to deny Marcus a room would now be known as the chain that took a hard look inward and changed. Back in the suite, Marcus looked at Rachel and said quietly, "You know what the real win is?" She looked up. "What?" "No apology was public, no cameras, and still, we fixed it." She nodded. "Because justice doesn't need to be loud to be real." He raised his cup. "To quiet change." She raised hers back. "To legacy." And somewhere, far below. The lobby stood still, waiting for its next check-in.